sorry, Aubrey, but you're getting nothing. Dad wanted it that way. Those were the first words my older brother Mason said as he clinked his wine glass against his fiancée's and stood before our entire extended family in my parents' lakefront home in Austin. The room erupted cheers. Whistles. Applause so loud it shook the chandelier. Aunts hugged him. Uncles slapped his back. His fiancée beamed like she'd just married into royalty, and my mother dabbed her eyes and whispered proudly, "He deserves it. He's the responsible one." I didn't clap. I didn't smile. I didn't even blink. I just looked straight at my father and asked quietly, "Dad, are you sure you want to do this?" His fork froze midair. Mason's smirk faltered. A hush rippled through the room. Everyone knew I wasn't the type to cause a scene. So, if I was speaking, something was coming. But none of them were ready for what I was about to reveal. Before I take you into the afternoon that flipped our entire family upside down, thank you for being here with me through this first moment. If you've ever sat at a table where everyone smiled while cutting you out, your support through a like, comment, share, or gentle subscribe truly means the world to me. Let me take you back to how we got here. My name is Aubrey Callahan, and if you'd met my family before that inheritance meeting, you'd have thought we were the perfect Texas success story. A ranch house near Lake Travis, Christmas parties with catered brisket and glowing fire pits, matching outfits and holiday cards. But no photo ever showed the truth Mason was the son. And the rest of us orbited around him whether we liked it or not. He was the son who stayed home, the son who helped Dad with the rental cabins, the son everyone praised for being steady, loyal, dependable. And I was the daughter who moved to Denver for work, meaning, in my family's vocabulary, the daughter who abandoned them. But Dad never saw what I saw: money disappearing, repairs paid twice, tenant complaints that never reached my parents, and a brother who treated the business like his personal cash machine 3 years earlier. My grandmother, Callahan, sharp, quiet, and always 3 steps ahead, called me to her porch one evening. She told me she needed my help. She handed me 2 folders. Folder 1, proof Mason had been quietly draining revenue from the cabins. Folder 2, a trust transferring ownership of all 7 properties to me, effective the moment she passed. And then Grammy said the words that changed everything: "Don't tell a soul until they try to take what's already yours." I gave her my word. And 3 years later, standing in my parents' living room, watching 30 people cheer for Mason as he announced he'd inherited everything, I knew that moment had finally come. Growing up in the Callahan family meant learning one rule early: Mason shines, and everyone else applauds. He was the golden boy quarterback in high school, Dad's shadow on the ranch, the future of the family legacy. I wasn't jealous. I simply didn't exist in the same category. When I won a statewide poetry competition, Mom said, "That's cute, honey, but Mason just got scouted by A&M when I earned a scholarship to Colorado State." Dad sighed. "Why would you leave Texas? Mason stays. Mason helps." Staying meant loyalty. Leaving meant betrayal. That's how it always worked. The truth is, Grammy Callahan was the only one who ever saw through the myth of Mason. She was a quiet woman, the kind who didn't speak unless every word mattered. And when she called me to her porch 3 years before the inheritance meeting, she wasn't shaky or confused. She was determined. She poured sweet tea, waited until the sun dipped low, then slid 2 folders across the table. "Aubrey," she said, "your daddy's blind to what your brothers become." But I'm not. I opened the first folder. Bank transfers, Duplicate invoices. Cash withdrawals under the business account. Mason managed. Thousands missing. Then tens of thousands. He treats the cabins like an ATM, Grammy said. And your parents don't want to see it. I looked up at her, stunned. Why are you showing me this? Because you're the only one who won't let this family fall apart. She replied. And because this, she tapped the second folder, is the insurance. Inside was the trust. All 7 lakeside rental cabins would transfer to me. Not Mason. Not my parents. Not any future spouse. And the trust included one more detail: Mason could be removed from all business operations the moment fraud was proved. But Grammy wasn't finished. You won't use this now, she said. You'll wait. Because one day, they'll forget who the cabins really belong to. They'll give everything to Mason. And when they do, that's when you'll need this. I didn't understand then. But the night Grammy passed, she whispered, don't let him ruin what I built. Promise me. I did, and as the months rolled by, Grammy's warning began proving itself true. Tenants complained about fees they never agreed to. Repairs were charged but never completed. My father defended Mason every time. He's learning, Dad said. He's doing his best. But his best was draining the business. That's when it hit me I was holding the truth alone. And the entire family was walking straight into a trap Mason had set without even understanding it. So when the inheritance meeting finally came, and Mason stood up bragging about his cabins, I didn't feel shocked. I felt ready. The inheritance meeting was supposed to be a simple family discussion, at least according to Dad. But when I walked into the living room and saw 30 people gathered with charcuterie boards, champagne flutes, and Mason's fiancée live streaming the setup, I realized this wasn't a meeting. It was a coronation. Mason stood in front like he'd already won something. As the one who stayed and handled the business, he announced, Dad and Mom decided the cabins are mine. I'll be the one carrying the Callahan legacy forward. The crowd applauded like trained seals. I sat quietly, hands folded, watching the performance. Mom chimed in. Aubrey, sweetheart, we're sure you understand. You moved away. Mason sacrificed his time. It's only fair. Fair. I repeated, tasting the word like something sour. Mason smirked. Don't be upset. Bree, you get to keep doing your Denver career thing. Isn't that enough? Their voices blurred. You were never good with the business. You don't have the temperament. Your brother needs it more. You were always the independent one. She left. Remember, no one asked what I thought. No one asked what I knew. Dad cleared his throat. Let's formalize it. Then, Mason takes full ownership. Something in me snapped from silence to clarity in 1 second. I stood. The room quieted. Mason raised an eyebrow. You have something to say, I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I simply said, if you're giving everything to Mason, then you should probably tell them the truth. Mom stiffened. What truth? I looked at Mason. His smile faltered. The truth about where the money went. The repairs that never happened. The withdrawals. The invoices. The tenants you scammed. A ripple of shock moved through the guests. Mason barked out a laugh. You're reaching. Bree. But he didn't look confident anymore. I picked up my purse. You know what? I'll let the right people explain it. And when they do, I paused at the doorway. You won't be celebrating. Mom snapped. Aubrey. Sit down, we're not done. Yes, I said softly. We are. And I walked out quiet, steady, collected. Not because I lost, but because I finally knew exactly how to win. I didn't drive home after leaving the inheritance meeting. I drove to the one place that always gave me clarity, Grammy Callahan's old cabin. The one she kept even after she got too frail to visit. It sat empty now. But the porch light still worked. And when it flicked on as I approached, I felt like she was still guiding me. Inside. I opened the second folder she'd given me 3 years earlier. The trust papers were crisp, clean, and unmistakably legal. Upon the death of Eleanor Callahan, all 7 rental properties transfer to beneficiary Aubrey Callahan. Immediate and full authority. Irrevocable. Dad never knew. Mason never asked. Grammy planned everything. I remembered her voice. Don't use this unless they try to take what's already yours. Well, they had. The next morning, I met with the attorney who drafted the trust. He scanned the documents, nodding with satisfaction. Your grandmother was smart. Very smart. These cabins belong to you and you alone. What about the money missing from the accounts? I asked. He handed me a pen. If we prove financial misconduct before you assume public control, you can remove Mason entirely from future operations. Permanently. Permanently. The word felt heavy and right. By noon, we were pulling financial statements. By 2 p.m., we found the withdrawals. By 4 p.m., we had proof Mason approved payments to a contractor who didn't exist. By the end of the day, the attorney leaned back and said, he wasn't just careless. He was stealing. I wasn't surprised. I'd always known Mason was reckless, just never realized he was bold enough to think no one would ever check behind him. I spent the next week gathering everything emails Grammy sent me. Screenshots of tenant complaints Mason ignored. Receipts from repairs he charged twice. And the list of emergency expenses that always appeared after his weekends in Dallas. Piece by piece. The truth formed a pattern, not a mistake. Not an oversight. But a full-scale siphoning of the family business. And my parents still gave him everything. One afternoon, I sat across from the attorney as he pushed the final document toward me, the activation order for transfer of ownership. All you have to do is sign, he said. I held the pen tightly. Signing this meant ending Mason's control, triggering an audit, and notifying the family that the cabins were legally mine. It meant breaking the illusion they'd built for years. It meant taking the legacy Grammy fought so hard to protect. I thought of the cheers at the inheritance meeting, Mom's dismissive smile, Mason's cocky toast, Dad's silence, and I signed my name. Aubrey Callahan. Clear. Sharp. Final. The attorney gathered the papers. We'll file everything first thing in the morning. When your family finds out, they won't be able to undo a thing. I exhaled slowly, letting the weight settle in my chest, not fear, not regret, but resolve. For the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting to my family. I was leading. My phone started buzzing before sunrise. 10 missed calls from Dad. 8 from Mom. 4 from Mason. All in, all caps. The ownership transfer had officially been recorded. By noon, the county business office notified the entire family Aubrey Callahan is now the sole legal owner and managing authority of all Callahan rental properties. Mandatory audit incoming. They were furious. They were shocked. But most importantly, they were powerless. That evening, Dad demanded a family emergency meeting at the ranch. I almost didn't go. But then I remembered Grammy's voice. They will underestimate you until the moment you show them why they shouldn't. So I walked into that living room with the same leather folder I'd carried for weeks, except this time. It wasn't a secret weapon. It was the truth. The room fell silent when I entered. Dad pointed at me. Explain what you've done. What I've done, I said calmly. I executed the trust Grandma left. Mom slammed a stack of papers on the table. We looked at the deed. Aubrey, we never saw your name on anything. How could she leave everything to you? I met her eyes. Because you didn't bother to read the second page. Mason was pacing, red-faced and panicked. This is insane. I've been managing those cabins for years. Dad put me in charge. How can she just take them? You never had anything to take. I said, you were operating on access, not ownership. Dad's voice cracked. You blindsided us. You blindsided yourselves. I replied, you made decisions without checking the paperwork. That's not on me. I set the folder on the coffee table. The sound echoed like a gavel. These, I continued, are the financial discrepancies you left behind. Withdrawals, fake repair invoices, duplicate charges, missing rental profits. Dad grabbed the papers with trembling hands. Mom hovered behind him, eyes wide. Mason stepped forward. You're twisting everything. You think I stole from the family I didn't answer. Instead, I clicked the remote and played an audio file through the TV speakers. A tenant's voicemail. Hi. Mason. Checking again about the hot water repair we paid for twice. You said someone came by. But no one ever has. Then another. Hi. Just following up on the extra fee you added. Mason said it was required, but the lease doesn't mention. And a third. Dad's jaw tightened. Mason, is this true? Mason stuttered. Dad. I was trying to cover costs. By stealing, I asked quietly. Dad slammed the papers down. Enough. Aubrey. What do you want from us? I took a steady breath. I don't want anything from you. But I'm taking back everything Grandma left me and everything Mason mishandled. Mom's voice softened into something like desperation. Please. Sweetheart, can't we fix this privately? No. I said. Grammy trusted me to protect the business. And I will. The room went quiet again, heavy. Suffocating. Final. For the first time in my life, my family wasn't looking at me like an afterthought. They were looking at me like someone they wished they had never underestimated. And the next part would destroy what little control they thought they had left. The mandatory audit was held at the county office fluorescent lights. Metal chairs. A long table that looked like it had seen decades of bad decisions. My parents sat stiffly. Mason bounced his knee nonstop. Their lawyer whispered in frantic little circles. Meanwhile, I sat at the end of the table, calm, collected. The trust papers neatly stacked in front of me. The lead auditor entered with a thick binder. We will begin with financial irregularities flagged during the last 3 years of Mr. Mason Callahan's management. Dad shot Mason a warning look. Mason forced a smile. It was bookkeeping mistakes. Nothing major. The auditor opened the binder. Then this should be easy to clear up. It wasn't. He flipped to page 1. Invoice, #4478, charged twice to tenants. No repair record. Funds withdrawn by M. Callahan. Then page 2. Vendor Hilltop Repairs. No business license. No tax ID. No employee listings. Payments processed directly to a personal account belonging to M. Callahan. Mason's face drained to chalk. Page 3. $19. 400 categorized as emergency fees. No documented emergency. Page 4. ATM withdrawals exceeding business policy. Cameras confirm the individual withdrawing cash is okay. Stop, Mason shouted. This is ridiculous. You're making me look like a criminal. The auditor didn't even blink. We're not making you look like anything. These are your signatures, your accounts, your withdrawals. A murmur spread across the room. My mother pressed a hand to her mouth. Dad looked like he wanted to disappear into the carpet. Mason slammed his palms on the table. Aubrey set me up. Everyone turned to me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I simply said, "The records come from the business bank. The county has them. I didn't create anything. I just exposed it." The auditor nodded. "Correct, Ms. Callahan's only involvement was requesting access as the legal owner of the properties." Mason blinked. Legal owner. The auditor flipped to another section. Yes, according to the Eleanor Callahan Trust, amended and notarized 8 years ago. Ownership transferred to Ms. Aubrey Callahan upon Mrs. Callahan's death, Mom whispered. She knew. All this time, Dad stared at me, stunned. "Why didn't you tell us?" I met his eyes steadily. "Because you wouldn't have believed me." The auditor turned to Mason. "Given the evidence, you are removed from all operational roles effective immediately. A full forensic investigation will follow." Mason exploded. "You can't do that. This is my family's business." I stood. "No," I said quietly. "It's mine." The room froze. I continued. "Grammy knew what you were doing before any of us did. She protected me. She protected the cabins. And now I'm doing exactly what she asked, removing the person who was destroying everything she built." Mason's voice cracked. "Aubrey, please. I need this business. You should have thought about that before stealing from it." Mom reached for me. Desperate. "Aubrey, he's your brother." I stepped back. He stopped being my brother the day he put his greed above our grandmother's legacy. The auditor closed the binder. Meeting adjourned. Ms. Callahan. We'll follow up tomorrow regarding next steps. As people gathered their things, whispers spread like wildfire. "Mason was stealing. Aubrey owns everything. Did you see the look on her parents' faces?" Dad approached me. Shaky. "Aubrey, what happens now?" "Now," I said, "you step aside. And I repair what Mason broke." I walked out of the room head high, heart steady. For the first time, they weren't watching me as the quiet daughter in the background. They were watching the woman holding everything they thought belonged to them. When the final audit report was released, the Callahan myth collapsed overnight. Mason had to pay restitution. Dad was barred from managing any rental business for 5 years. Mom stopped going to church because people whispered every time she walked in. For so long, they acted like I was the embarrassment. Now the truth had flipped the entire narrative. Meanwhile, the cabins. My cabins finally started thriving. I rehired honest contractors, fixed long-neglected issues, and reopened bookings under a new brand, Callahan Lake Retreats, in honor of Eleanor Callahan. Guests loved it. Reviews soared. Revenue doubled within 6 months. One afternoon, while overseeing renovations at Cabin 3, I paused on the porch and looked out at the water. Peaceful, quiet, mine. For the first time, I understood what Grammy meant when she said, "You'll know when it's your turn." This standing on land she protected for me was that moment. Life moved forward. I expanded into property development, bought 2 more lakeside lots, hired a growing staff, built a life rooted not in the family I came from, but in the future I chose. Then, one evening, as golden sunlight stretched across the lake, a knock sounded at my office door. It was my father. Older, smaller, shoulders slumped. No arrogance left, Aubrey, he said quietly. Can we talk? I didn't say anything, just let him speak. We've lost a lot, he admitted. Voice thin. People don't look at us the same. Mason, he's struggling. And your mother, he swallowed. She wants to make things right. We all do. For a moment, I saw the father I used to hope he'd be, but the feeling passed. He continued. Maybe we could work together again. Maybe you could help the family rebuild. There it was, the request. Not an apology. Not accountability. A plea for access. I exhaled slowly. Dad, I hope you and Mom find your footing. Truly. But you don't get to step back into something you tried to take from me. His eyes glistened. So that's it, yes. I said. That's it. He nodded. Defeated. Your grandmother always believed in you. I wish I had. It's never too late to learn. I replied. But it is too late to control me. He left quietly, closing the door without force this time. I turned back toward the lake. The last of the sun reflecting off the water like tiny gold sparks. This view wasn't stolen. It wasn't inherited through favoritism. It wasn't gifted by people who couldn't see my worth. It was earned. Protected. Mine. And the greatest victory wasn't taking the business back, it was finally stepping out of the shadow of people who never thought I could. Thank you for staying with me through the final chapter. If Aubrey's journey resonated with your own experiences of reclaiming your power, your support through a like, comment, share, or gentle subscribe truly means the world. I'm grateful you walked this path with me.